Today we are going to talk about living things. So make sure you have your notes out and you're ready to write some things down. So any living thing is called an organism. We are organisms, your dog at home is an organism, and organisms can vary in size. They're found just about anywhere. They eat different foods and they have different behaviors. So we have a few different kingdoms represented. This is the fungi kingdom. This is a mushroom. This is the animal kingdom, a dog. The plant kingdom, a palm tree, and bacteria kingdom. And a whale is also an animal, so that would be in the animal kingdom. There are 5 characteristics of every living thing. So 5 things that every living thing needs. If it doesn't have one of these things, it means it's not a living thing. The first one is that it is organized. It responds to things. It uses energy. They grow and they develop, and they reproduce. So we're going to look at each one of these characteristics individually. So living things are organized. All organisms are made up of cells. Later we're going to talk about whether those are eukaryotic cells, prokaryotic cells, whether they're made of just one cell like bacteria or made of many cells like humans and animals and plants, and most things are made of many cells. The cell is the smallest unit of an organism that carries on the functions of life. So it's the smallest thing inside a living thing that pretty much carries on all the things in our body that we do. As I said before, some organisms are made up of one cell and some are made up of many cells. We are made up of many cells. So dogs are made up of many cells. And this is a picture of a cell right down here of an animal cell. We'll talk more about those in the future. Living things also respond. So they interact with their surroundings. So an example of how living things respond is when a dog comes to you when you whistle or you say sit. That's a learned behavior that you've taught them, and they respond to that because usually they think they will get a treat. Living things also use energy. Energy used by most organisms comes either directly or indirectly from the sun. We'll talk about that when we talk about how photosynthesis is used for plants to make food, and then we eat those plants. So that's how our energy comes indirectly from the sun. So like I said, dogs will eat food for their energy, and then they use their energy to run and play. Living things grow and develop. Organisms grow by taking in raw materials, which are just food and water, and by making more cells. Organisms also change as they grow. So think about what you looked like when you were a tiny, tiny baby and how much taller you've gotten and maybe how much taller you're going to grow and how many changes that you still have yet to go through. So an example is dogs. If you ever had a dog, you probably got it when it was about 8 weeks old, but it was even tinier before you got it, as you can see in this picture. And usually when dogs are born, they're not as cute as they are when they're puppies, but these are pretty cute. So this is when they're just born, and then when they're just probably a few months old, 2 or 3 months old, and then when they're full grown. So all organisms grow and develop. The last thing is living things reproduce. All organisms eventually reproduce. If they didn't, they would go extinct, which has obviously happened to some organisms. An example, same thing, dogs reproduce. That's how you can get puppies. So there are 2 things that all living things need, and that is a place to live and raw materials, water, food, etc. So think about just a bird, for example. If a bird doesn't have a place to live, then it doesn't have anywhere to lay its eggs and have a family, so it can't raise its young, doesn't have anywhere to go back to and store food, it doesn't have anywhere to hide from predators. So that's really, really, really important to have for living things. The other thing is raw materials, which is just water and food. 2 theories that we're going to come back to are spontaneous generation and biogenesis. So we will talk about those in a few days.